Undercover boss discovers cashier's heart-wrenching story, an inspiring transformation exposed. Sarah stood behind the register, her smile an unwavering facade that seemed to brighten the already sun-drenched small-town grocery store. The chatter of clanking carts and friendly banter filled the air, creating a rhythm of normalcy that both comforted and tormented her. Each ding of the register felt like a reminder of the hefty bills constantly looming over her, a looming threat of eviction, of her children being uprooted, of her ailing mother needing more medical care than they could afford. Some days she felt as if the weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders, but as she scanned barcodes and exchanged pleasantries with customers, she pushed those thoughts aside. Just another day, she thought. But deep within, her heart raced with the fear that her laughter was merely a distraction, a decision to show a brave face while battling insurmountable odds. Raising two little ones alone while caring for her mother was both exhausting and rewarding. It left her emotionally drained, longing for something more. A chance to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse, something her late grandmother had always believed she could achieve. The thought of nursing whispered sweetly through her mind. It was a calling, an aspiration that made her heart swell briefly, till reality crashed in, reminding her of the mountains of debt, unpaid medical bills, and rising anxiety. Today was shaping up to be like every other day, until a figure clad in a store uniform caught her eye. He blended in seamlessly, but there was something different about him, an intensity that, when their gazes met, made her stomach drop. She didn't know him, but her instincts told her he wasn't just another shopper. As she made small talk, scanning bananas and cereal boxes with practiced ease, she remained acutely aware of the biting anxiety gnawing at her insides. How will I afford this month's rent? The thought spiraled as she packed a customer's groceries. Her hands trembled slightly, a physical manifestation of the internal storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. Would today be a day where she'd be forced to confront her fears? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every exchange, Sarah felt a strange ease in the company of this stranger. As Michael smiled back, unaware of the fracture lines of anxiety on her heart, the dream of nursing flickered in her thoughts, a small light against a dark storm. But just as swiftly, shadows crept back in. The fear of failing her children, her mother, her own dreams. The weight of it all bubbled over when an unexpected phone call shattered her calm. Her mother's health had taken a serious turn. The lump in Sarah's throat tightened, and her mind fogged with the panic of impending loss. The break room had become a sanctuary of despair, filled with canned goods, far from the vibrancy of the front register. Tears threatened to fall as she gripped the phone tightly. I can't lose her," she whispered fervently, her heart racing against reason. She could almost feel the specter of losing everything she loved creeping closer. Suddenly, shadows became concrete, framing her thoughts. Would she lose her family, her home? Would those days dreaming of nursing ever come to fruition? Michael, unaware of Sarah's suffocating turmoil and the impact his presence had made in her otherwise mundane life, stood on the brink of realizing just how deep the struggles of his employees ran. While he fought against the guilt of having known nothing about Sarah's reality, Sarah was battling to keep her hopes alive amidst chaos. Each moment was a crossroads. What would become of these dreams, these burdens, and the flickering possibility of transformation in a world that often forgot its beating heart? The icy grip of fear tightened around Sarah's chest, her phone still buzzing faintly in her hand. This can't be happening, she thought, her mind racing. The break room's sterile light felt oppressive, mirroring her sudden stomach-churning anxiety. She could hear the muffled sounds of customers laughing outside, cheery sounds that felt mocking in the face of her impending despair. Focus, she reminded herself, taking a deep breath. What do I need to do? The question spiraled within her, revealing her instinctive drive for solutions amidst chaos. She needed to be strong, for her mother, for her children. Anguish ebbed and flowed, threatening to overwhelm her resolve, but within that maelstrom lay a flicker of determination. The time for action had arrived. Sarah glanced around the break room, now an arena hosting a debate between her fear and her ambition. Envelopes cluttered the countertop, reminders of her stagnant financial obligations. But tucked away was the college brochure for evenings classes in nursing. For months, anxiety had silenced the whispers of her aspirations, but now they rose anew, stronger and more insistent. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to consider the possibility of a path forward. Could I do this? The question hovered as she pulled the brochure toward her, fingering its edges, envisioning the life her grandmother had envisioned for her. What would it take? How much longer could she hold out, tethered to her current job, barely making ends meet? Her mind raced through potential options. Dismissing her job was not feasible. It was too vital for her current survival. But could she juggle school, her job, and her responsibilities at home? A wave of self-doubt washed over her as she recalled past failures. Could she return to the classroom after so long? The doubts echoed her mother's feeble voice, reminding her to always be practical, but the humanity in Sarah rebelled against that dictate. Just then, Michael popped into the break room, his expression shifting when he noticed her distress. "Sarah, you okay?" he asked, genuine concern in his tone. "Just a lot on my mind," she replied, forcing a smile that felt feeble against her turmoil. She studied him. He felt authentic, someone whose curiosity reached beyond the surface pleasantries of small talk. Maybe he could be the ally she desperately needed. The thought of sharing her aspirations ignited a flicker of empowerment within her. "Actually," she started, a surge of courage propelling her forward, "I've been thinking about going back to school for nursing." The words escaped her mouth like a dam bursting. Michael's brows rose, a spark of admiration alighting in his eyes. "That's amazing, Sarah. You'd be great at it. What's stopping you?" "A lot," she admitted, her resolve wavering. "Money, time, everything. I barely manage as it is." He nodded sympathetically, diving into a discussion that crackled with energy. "There might be scholarships," he suggested thoughtfully. "I could help you look. You never know what you might find." Sarah felt the weight of his words settle into her mind. The prospect began to shape a newfound purpose that had been lost in the swamp of her struggles. As they shared possible resources, their conversation weaved into ambitious chances and possibilities, each word turning the tide against her worries. However, enthusiasm stumbled upon her obligations as another wave of reality crashed in. Could she truly manage both educational pursuits and her family's demands? And what would happen if she did fail? Her heart raced, warring emotions colliding once more. As the day's customers continued to shuffle past, Sarah caught a glimpse of a brighter future, one that expanded beyond the four walls of her small-town grocery store. The dream was precarious, but ignited. And just as swiftly as they'd spoken about dreams, they were ushered back to the present as a customer called out, snapping Sarah's focus. But a burning question lingered in her mind. Was she finally ready to risk her heart for a chance at change? The shadows of doubt remained, but now they fought against the glow of possibility. Tomorrow would come with its challenges, but perhaps today was the first step toward confronting them all. Yet as the sun dipped below the horizon, a pulsating anxiety lurked. What if she fell short again? The moment of decision was on the horizon, and it beckoned with a fierce urgency. Would she muster the courage to embrace it? The following morning, the air felt different. The sunlight streamed through her bedroom window with the warmth of fresh possibility. Sarah awoke with a sense of urgency, the dream from the night before still lingering in her mind. A vivid tableau of her standing before an audience, articulate and confident, sharing her journey to nursing. But as she lay there, the weight of reality loomed large. She couldn't delay any longer. Both the dream and the dread awaited action. Her first step, she decided, was to review the nursing program details. With the college brochure in hand, her initial hesitation returned. Every financial figure overwhelmed her. Feeling her stomach churn, she pushed it aside. This time, she would approach it methodically. She grabbed a piece of paper and began jotting down notes, tuition costs, potential scholarships, and the schedule. Each word written on the page represented a commitment to herself, a promise to confront her fears. As Sarah prepared for work, she mentally ran through her day. Every routine task felt different. She was no longer just a cashier, but someone on the cusp of transformation. At the grocery store, she wove through the aisles, greeting regular customers with a newfound brightness. She envisioned each interaction as building blocks toward her future. In the break room, she found Michael engaged in a conversation with a newly hired employee. He caught Sarah's eye and motioned her over, a smile illuminating his face. "Hey, we were just talking about you. I told her about your plans for nursing, and you should have seen her face," he said, turning to the new employee. "This lady's gonna be a nurse." His enthusiasm, though uplifting, tapped into Sarah's buried anxieties. "It's just an idea," she replied, keeping her tone light. Yet a flicker of determination ignited within her as she realized how much she wanted to believe in that vision. They spent their break discussing potential funding options. With each suggestion Michael offered, from state scholarships to federal grants, Sarah felt the fog of doubt begin to dissipate, replaced by eager curiosity. It dawned on her that securing her education wouldn't be solely about finance, but also about understanding her worth. Could she advocate for herself with the same fervor she'd used to shield her family from hardship? Later at the register, a frazzled mother with a crying child approached. As Sarah rang up her groceries, the mother shared snippets about her struggles. Listening to familiar woes, Sarah felt compelled to step in, offering words of encouragement. "You're doing an incredible job," she said softly. And the mother's tired expression brightened just a fraction. It struck Sarah that these moments, these small servings of empathy, were the essence of nursing. Her heart raced with the realization that she already possessed skills essential for the field, skills she had long overlooked. After her shift ended, Sarah sat in her car, hands clenched on the steering wheel, left with spiraling thoughts about the demands of school against her family responsibilities. The prospect of failure still haunted her, gnawing at her confidence. But as she replayed the day, the conversations, and the glimmer of hope ignited by Michael, a quiet resolve settled within her. Armed with a plan, Sarah decided to apply for scholarships that very night. As she opened her laptop, a surge of excitement surged through her. But with that thrill came a sudden flicker of uncertainty. The vulnerability of submission gnawed at her resolve. A pleading thought emerged. What if her application didn't reflect who she truly was? The screen glowed, illuminating her quest, yet looming questions remained unanswered. In midst of this ambivalence, one thing became clear. She was standing at the precipice of a choice that could transform her life, a difficult leap that required not just action, but courage. The moment of truth echoed in her mind as she hovered over the submit button. Would she take the plunge, risking everything for a shot at the future she envisioned? With her heart pounding in her chest, the answer felt just out of reach, and Sarah knew the next chapter of her journey awaited. Would she finally cross into the unknown, or let fear tether her back to a life of what-ifs? The rhythmic tapping of Sarah's fingers against the keyboard was interspersed with moments of breath-laden hesitation. Each stroke felt like a small step toward liberation, yet anxiety wove its way through her resolve, paralyzing her instinct to press the button that would unlock her future. What would happen if she pressed it? Would she find the support she needed, or would it open an unrelenting flood of judgment and disappointment? The prospect of failure loomed like a specter, whispering doubts into her ear, urging her to back away from the edge of this decision. Determined not to let fear dictate her actions, Sarah took a moment to reflect. She recalled the mother in line that day, the vulnerability in her eyes as she spoke of her struggles, and the quiet dignity that came with seeking help. It became clearer now. Nursing was not just about technical skills or academic qualifications. It was about compassion, shared stories, and the strength to rise despite unpredictability. In that moment, Sarah felt a flicker of empowerment. With newfound clarity, she returned her focus to the screen, scrolling breathlessly through the application form. Her story was her power. The trials she faced were not chains, but rather the fabric from which she would weave her future. She hesitated only briefly at the request for a personal statement. If she needed to demonstrate who she was, it would have to be raw and unfiltered. Taking a deep breath, Sarah poured her heart into the words. Speaking to the challenges she faced as a caretaker for her siblings, the weight of their expectations pressing heavily on her shoulders. She wrote about the moments she felt lost, grappling with her dreams versus reality, and how each interaction with a struggling customer unraveled a deeper calling to help others. Once the personal statement was complete, Sarah reviewed her scholarship application as if for the last time. Yet deep down, she understood this was just the beginning. The courage to send this would also demand for her to advocate for herself in ways she had never attempted before. She was not merely applying for funding. She was asserting her identity, her right to become a nurse. With her heart pounding fiercely, she finally pressed submit. A mix of pride and terror surged through her veins. The vulnerability of that act mimicked the anticipation of standing before a crowd, exposed yet exhilarated. Just as she felt her weight lift, an email notification pinged, a reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. A school open house loomed that weekend, and she was determined to attend, though the mere thought of it spiraled a fresh batch of anxiety within her. How would she navigate the pressure of standing beside other potential students? Would their confidence ignite her insecurities or fuel her momentum? There was no turning back now. Sarah knew she needed to prepare. Attending the open house meant engaging with faculty, possibly sitting among her peers, and confronting her envisioning process, a blend of thrill and anxiety crashing within her like waves. A sense of determination rooted in her chest. She would face this gorge of uncertainty head on. She could no longer let dread schedule her life. She had to seize this opportunity, to step into the light of possibilities she had envisioned since that first dream. As the evening deepened, Sarah mapped out questions to ask, wanting to know about academics, mentorship opportunities, and ways she could contribute despite her circumstances. The urgency of her mission resonated deeply, every plan solidifying her unfolding self-definition. She was ready to introduce herself not just as a cashier or a caretaker, but as someone unyieldingly committed to becoming a nurse, no longer confined by her fears, but rather propelled by them. But as the date drew closer, a pit of self-doubt gripped her again. The haunting thought pushed itself forward. What if she wouldn't belong in this new world? With a disquieting sense of foreboding, she reflected on whether she had the tools to thrive, or whether they would prove insufficient. Her heart raced as the hours ticked by, the evening stretching long before the dawn of a new chapter. Would she push forward into this unknown, or retreat into the familiar shadows of uncertainty that had defined her for so long? As she sought sleep, the question that lingered like an unwritten page in her story echoed in her mind. What if? What if this was the moment that could truly change everything? The morning sun broke through Sarah's window, bathing her room in a soft golden light that seemed to radiate possibility. Yet, as she prepared for the open house, each action was laden with an undercurrent of apprehension. The thrill of the unknown was intoxicating, yet it felt like a shadow looming behind her, reminding her of her weaknesses, her uncertainties. Standing in front of the mirror, she practiced her introduction. The words were good, solid,
But each repetition chipped away at her confidence. She needed something more, something that would resonate. "What do I even bring to the table?" she murmured quietly. Her reflection remained silent, the question lingering like an unanswered prayer. As she dressed, she ran her fingers over the fabric of her blouse, a modest yet vibrant green. It reminded her of the courage she'd mustered to send her application. Today would be a reflection of that courage in action. She inhaled deeply, recalling the mother whose story had inspired her. Her vulnerability had ignited a spark in Sarah, a desire to share herself and connect with others. Stepping outside, the brisk air nipped at her skin, awakening her senses. She surrendered herself to the university's energy, a blend of anticipation and chatter that filled the campus. Students flowed like currents, each individual lost in their own journey. Yet Sarah felt an urgent need to plant her own flag amidst the sea of strangers. Walking into the auditorium, the ambiance of possibility buzzed around her. She scanned the crowd, each person exuding confidence and purpose, making her wonder if she truly belonged. The vibrant posters showcasing nursing programs and faculty achievements lined the walls, yet they felt more like barriers than gateways. Would she be seen as merely another face among many, or would her story become part of this larger narrative? Forced to confront her discomfort, Sarah focused on her objective: to gather information and engage with those who had walked the path ahead of her. She made a mental checklist of questions, but now they felt daunting. What if she stumbled over her words or asked something trivial? "I can do this," she whispered to herself, grounding her resolve. The opening remarks began, the dean's voice echoing with enthusiasm. Words like community and growth punctuated the air, yet they carried a weight that tugged at Sarah's chest. They were not merely descriptors, but rather markers of aspiration that ignited a conflict within her. Could she contribute meaningfully? During the breakout sessions, Sarah positioned herself near the back, observing. She listened intently as faculty members shared their experiences, each one fraught with challenges, yet underscored by triumph. A realization washed over her. They too had faced moments of doubt. When it came time for questions, a surge of adrenaline propelled her hand upward, heart pounding as she spoke. What resources are available for students balancing caregiving responsibilities? The moment felt suspended in time. As the faculty member began to respond, a calmness settled over her. The answer unfolded into a conversation, and with each exchange, the tension within her began to dissipate. She saw the glimmers of understanding and empathy in the responses, confirming that her struggles were valid and shared by others. As the day unfolded, her confidence grew, each interaction shedding layers of self-doubt. She found herself laughing, sharing snippets of her story with peers, and even exchanging contact information with potential mentors who embraced her ambitions with zeal. Yet, beneath this burgeoning resilience remained flickers of anxiety, the shadow quietly dancing just out of reach. Her heart tugged at the thought of whether she could maintain this momentum against the struggles of everyday life. In the closing moments of the open house, Sarah stood before a table of sign-ups for prospective students, a hesitation gripping her again. "Do I dare?" she pondered aloud, hand hovering just above the sheets. Was she ready to commit to this path, to dive deeper into her personal and professional transformation, even when the currents shifted unpredictably? Her breath quickened as she imagined all the ways she could grow, yet it was accompanied by unease about the obstacles that lay ahead. Taking another deep breath, she reached forward to sign her name. In that simple action, she embraced the path already laid before her, but questioned what unexpected challenges awaited. As she walked away, the intrigue of the open house transformed into a weighty promise. What would her first day of classes unveil about her hidden strengths? With an uncertain but eager heart, Sarah stepped into the world beyond the doors that now stood ajar, a new journey on the cusp of beginning. The first day of classes arrived like a rhythmic wave, rolling over Sarah with a mix of excitement and dread. She entered the building, the echoes of laughter and conversation amplifying her apprehension. Each step felt burdensome, full of hopes intertwined with lurking fears. Would today strip bare her newfound confidence or bolster it further? The lecture hall brimmed with students, each absorbed in their own world. As Sarah took her seat, she glanced around, noting how they connected easily, sharing quiet laughter and knowing nods. She felt like an outsider again, an invisible thread in a tapestry she couldn't weave. When the professor began speaking, Sarah fixated on the words. The subject of nursing danced between fury and compassion, bridging the gap between knowledge and human connection. It resonated within her, igniting a determination that had been smothered by her self-doubt. Yet this feeling dipped and swayed with her thoughts. What if she failed to grasp these concepts? What if her past weighed her down? Focus on what you can learn, she chastised herself, shaking off the apprehensive fog. Slowly, she pushed herself to engage. When it came time for questions, she raised her hand, surprised at her own boldness. The question tumbled out, a mixture of curiosity and vulnerability. The professor's response was not only informative, but loaded with genuine encouragement. Sarah's heart raced as enthusiasm washed over her. Could this be her space of growth? As the class ended, she gathered her belongings, eager to forge connections. Yet, as she approached a group of classmates, the nagging voice of self-doubt crept back in. What if they don't want to include you? She hesitated, standing on the precipice of interaction. Just as she was about to retread her steps, one of the students, Kelly, caught her eye. With a welcoming smile, Kelly waved her over. "We were just talking about the assignment. Want to join us?" In that moment, the walls she had built seemed to crumble. Sarah felt a rush of gratitude. She stepped forward, heart pounding.
As conversations flowed, peers shared their fears, dreams, and a common understanding of the journey ahead. It felt liberating and affirming, and for the first time, she didn't feel like an outsider. With each discussion, her identity grew clearer. She discovered a passion for patient advocacy among her classmates, a niche she hadn't considered before. It was exhilarating to envision herself not just as a student, but as someone with a voice ready to represent the vulnerable. Days turned into weeks, and with each class, her confidence amplified. She embraced her caregiving experience as a strength rather than a burden. The intricate tapestry of her life became threads of ambition, weaving resilience and compassion into a clearer picture of who she wanted to be. Yet, despite her progress, shadows loomed just out of reach. The weight of responsibilities outside academia began to press upon her. A lingering worry surfaced. Could she balance the demands of her personal life while pursuing her education? Each evening, as she returned home to care for her family, she wondered if her aspirations were slowly drifting away. In a moment of reflection, she pondered, "Do I prioritize my dreams, even if it means others might suffer?" The internal struggle mirrored the intricate course of her life. As she leaned back in her chair one evening, the frustration built within her. She glanced at her studies and the other roles she played, weighing them against her ambitions. The stakes were rising. Eventually, Sarah closed her eyes and, with determination, forged a plan. She would talk to her family, analyze her time management, set new boundaries. She would not let fear dictate her path. The next day, a message from Kelly appeared on her phone, an invitation to join a study group for an upcoming exam. Sarah hesitated, her mind racing through the challenges ahead. But she felt a pulse of determination surge within her. Maybe this was the moment to unite her worlds. With a newfound resolve, she replied affirmatively, committed to embracing her aspirations despite the complications. As she set the message down, a flicker of fear mingled with courage. The time had come to confront not just her studies, but the delicate balance of life that awaited. Would she thrive under pressure, or would the weight of responsibility drown out her ambitions?
The crossroads loomed ahead, and with it, a heart-stirring revelation shimmered just beyond her reach. What could she discover about herself when embracing the complexities of both her dreams and her reality? With the study group scheduled for the following evening, anticipation curled tightly in Sarah's stomach, both thrilling and terrifying. The thought of collaborating with her peers on the upcoming exam felt akin to stepping onto a stage where she would either shine or falter. She recognized the importance of this moment, not just academically, but personally. Here she would inch closer to claiming her identity, a student, a compassionate caregiver who had a voice worth sharing. As the day wore on, the weight of her dual life pressed heavily against her. Family aesthetics were cluttering her thoughts. Bills that needed paying, dinner plans to coordinate, and a younger sibling grappling with their own struggles. She could already hear her mother's voice, gentle but weary, reminding her of the delicate fabric of their lives that often unraveled in her absence. Yet Sarah had decided this was the time to stretch her wings, a decision that thrilled her but also filled her with guilt. That evening, she placed her textbooks on the table, contrasting the chaos of her surroundings with the order she sought in her studies. Her family was gathered in the living room, laughter spilling out as they shared their day. Sarah watched them momentarily, feeling a twinge of resentment mixed with love. Right now, they were all smiling, but she sensed the looming conversations about responsibilities waiting at the tip of her tongue, clawing to be expressed. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah stood and made her way toward them, determined to carve a space for dialogue. "Can we talk about a few things?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt, yet she knew there was no turning back. As they quieted, she explained her commitment to the study group and the demands of her coursework. Responses varied from encouragement to confusion, her mother's concern hanging in the air like an unsaid question. How can you balance everything? The moment stung, but Sarah met the challenge head-on. "I want to pursue this," she asserted, "to support all of us better down the line. I need your help managing expectations." Each word was a step toward steadying herself against the waves of fear and doubt that had threatened to wash over her. Her family's reluctance morphed into cautious support, and they suggested adjusting chores and duties to accommodate her studies. Relief washed through her. A crucial shift had occurred, and she could feel the weight lifting off her shoulders just a fraction. Later that night, as Sarah prepared for the study group, she dedicated a portion of her evening to strategizing. She examined potential study techniques, focusing on patient advocacy themes that sparked her excitement. But among the myriad topics swarming in her mind, she couldn't shake the persistent thought: did she even belong in this group? Could she keep pace with her peers? With each turn of the pages, she noticed glimpses of knowledge she had absorbed from her past experiences. Suddenly, her nervous energy transformed into a simmering enthusiasm. She had insights from her own life that could contribute richly to the discussions. The moment of truth blurred closer, and a next layer of self-doubt crept in. What if they didn't find her contributions valuable? What if the mask of competence she showcased would slip, revealing inadequacies? Her heart raced at the thought of expressing her vulnerabilities, but perhaps that too could weave connection into the tapestry she longed to be part of. The next evening arrived, and with each step toward
the coffee shop where they were gathering, her pulse quickened. Sarah pushed the doubts down, reminding herself this moment was not just about proving herself, but a chance to learn, share, and grow together. As she entered, she spotted Kelly waving, and the group's laughter echoed like a beacon of warmth. Yet, amid the camaraderie, an unsettling realization struck her. To truly embrace this opportunity, she would need to be authentic, exposing her strengths, yes, but also her fears. Would sharing her story that evening allow her to bond with her peers, or would it leave her feeling more isolated than ever? With a resolute heart, she stepped forward. The dilemma of vulnerability loomed large, and Sarah prepared herself to navigate through this uncharted territory of support, ambition, and the risks involved in revealing her true self. What was she willing to share in order to form genuine connections, and what might that cost her? As Sarah settled into her chair with a steaming cup of coffee, she surveyed the group before her. Kelly sat next to her, an inviting smile on her face that momentarily eased Sarah's mind. The other members, David, Mia, and Ethan, were engaged in animated conversation, weaving their academic strengths into the fabric of potential exam strategies. Each laugh reminded her of the camaraderie she longed for, yet the fear of inadequacy lingered like an unseen specter. Their discussions about nerve-wracking clinical scenarios suited her aspirations and sparked her curiosity. Yet, with every witty remark and confident insight shared within the circle, Sarah felt the familiar tightening in her chest. She grappled with the internal debate. Was her perspective substantial enough to add value amidst their fluency in textbook knowledge? "Did you read about that new patient advocacy law? It changes so much for our future work," Mia chimed in, earning nods of approval. Sarah felt the urge to contribute bubbling just beneath the surface, causing her fingers to fidget with the edge of her textbook. In that moment, she realized the hold her past experiences had on her. She could share about the time she had navigated complicated health scenarios for her mother, the decisions made at the intersection of care and legal knowledge. Nonetheless, the memory came with the bittersweet sting of vulnerability. Before she could register the moment's intensity, David shifted the topic toward study strategies, a perfectly curated route to detour from her hesitant self-revelation. Observing their seamless banter, Sarah thought about her mother's words. "You have to put yourself out there. No one can see you if you stay in the shadows." The quiet tension inside worked its way to the forefront of her mind. Gathering courage, she navigated her thoughts. Opening up meant risking judgment, yet it also meant risking connection, a dynamic that could either propel her into self-acceptance or plunge her deeper into isolation. With a deep breath, Sarah cleared her throat, gradually quieting the room's energy. "I'd like to share something, if that's all right," she ventured. The sudden earnestness in her voice held everyone's attention, a flicker of interest refreshing the air. As she spoke, she shared her experiences of balancing academics with family obligations, how she often battled self-doubt amidst the pressures to succeed for them. She could have easily faltered, but as she unveiled her truth, the vulnerability of admitting her fears, the collective atmosphere shifted from mere social interaction to something deeper. She spoke of her mother's illnesses, the horizon of uncertainty that had molded her resolve as a future caregiver, and the desire to carve out a space where both her voice and her experiences mattered. The vulnerability hung between them, thick with understanding and connection. She felt the warmth of acceptance, and rather than retreat, Sarah chose to embrace it. The uncertainty that had draped over her heart eased as she finished. Eyes that had initially marked her as an outsider now glimmered with camaraderie, and she sensed an invisible bond knitting the group tighter. "Wow," Ethan finally said, his tone genuine and reflective. "That's incredible. I never realized how much you juggle outside of school." The affirmation washed over Sarah like a soothing balm, transforming her initial dread into the thrill of shared experience. A newfound commitment to these relationships dawned on her. Their interactions felt richer, fueled by a comprehensive understanding of one another's struggles. She could feel her self-image expanding. Perhaps she was more resilient than she had given herself credit for. As topics evolved from practical strategies to deeper discussions about passion and purpose, Sarah found her footing, contributing with renewed vigor. The conversation danced towards her hidden insights on advocacy, inspiring others as she shared her vision for a compassionate healthcare approach. Yet, lurking alongside her excitement was the reminder that vulnerability could also open the door to criticism. What if they began to see her as just more than the capable student? What if they acknowledged the weight of her responsibilities, or worse, defined her by them? The meeting drew to a close, and as she departed, lingering warmth filled her chest. She felt a sense of belonging, an inner promise that she would forge an authentic identity not solely defined by her academic role or familial duties. Stepping out into the evening air, Sarah sensed a shift within her. But with the exhilaration of acceptance came another wave of apprehension. What if this transformative experience exposed deeper layers of her identity that she was not ready to confront? The internal struggle lingered, an unresolved chord that played in her heart as she realized the importance of facing the next dilemma awaiting her. There was a choice to make: continue down the path of authentic connection or retreat to a safer distance from the risk of exposure. What lay ahead would define not just her academic trajectory, but what kind of caregiver and person she truly aspired to be. And as shadows lengthened behind her, she knew the real challenge was just beginning. Would she embrace the chaos of vulnerability and potentially transformative honesty, or retreat once more into the shadows of self-doubt? Sarah paced slowly across her apartment, the familiar surroundings now feeling constricting. Each step resonated with a mixture of excitement and dread, the vibrant discussion from earlier still echoing in her mind. She could almost hear her own voice, steady and clear, sharing her truth. A moment that had felt both liberating and terrifying. With a sigh, she sank onto her small couch. Her mind raced through the implications of her vulnerability. She faced a reality that lay beyond her academic struggles, the complex tapestry of her identity, woven together by familial obligations and aspirations that felt heavier than ever. It was as if she had cracked open a door to uncharted territory, but now she hesitated at the threshold. Would pushing forward expose her more than she was ready for? Or could it serve as a catalyst for growth? Suddenly, a buzz from her phone broke through the haze of thought. It was a message from Mia. "Hey, do you want to grab coffee tomorrow? I think we can strategize some ideas for the advocacy project." A flurry of emotions shot through Sarah, gratefulness for that invitation, but also a pulse of anxiety. Did Mia want to engage with her out of genuine interest, or was it merely an extension of courtesy? She typed a quick response, agreeing to meet, then put the phone down. The invitation felt like a lifeline thrown in the midst of uncertainty, yet she sensed the pressure mounting. Would she truly be able to contribute to the project? Had sharing her personal story inadvertently raised expectations? The next day, the cafe buzzed with energy, a cacophony of steaming machines and lively chatter. Sarah arrived early, wanting to gather her thoughts. Yet, as the minutes passed, her mind spiraled into a tempest of questions and self-doubt. What if Mia was disappointed in her after hearing her story? What if she was seen as a burden instead of an asset to the group? When Mia breezed in, her smile radiated warmth and familiarity. They exchanged pleasantries, and shortly afterward, the conversation shifted toward the advocacy project. Yet, instead of diving into the complexities of legislation, Mia paused, her expression thoughtful. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" she began, her voice uncharacteristically serious. "What inspired your vision for compassionate care?" Sarah blinked at the unexpected question. The weight of her experiences surged to the forefront, a visceral reminder of why she had shared in the first place. Unused to being placed under such scrutiny, she felt the boundaries blur between obligation and aspiration. "Well," she stammered, collecting her thoughts, "my mom spent years navigating the healthcare system. I saw how disheartening it could be when people didn't advocate for her." The words flowed, each one grounding her in the conversation. "It made me realize that each patient deserves someone fighting for them, not just medically, but emotionally too." Mia nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mix of understanding and respect. "That's profound." Think a lot of our peers might relate to that. Maybe we can weave this personal narrative into our project. It'll add depth. A flush of warmth spread through Sarah at Mia's words. The seed of her vulnerability was blooming into something purposeful rather than burdensome. But there remained the gnawing fear that clarity of purpose could lead to an inevitable confrontation with her own limitations. With resolution brewing inside her, Sarah pivoted the conversation to her ideas on integrating patient stories into their advocacy, feeling more engaged and alive. Each insight exchanged not only strengthened their project, but also nurtured her sense of belonging. Yet, beneath the excitement was a deep-seated fear, the kind that whispers insidiously when walls start to break down. What would happen if her raw honesty turned into a point of contention? As they discussed potential directions, the weight of fear mixed with anticipation pressed against her chest. Later on, as they finished their coffees, Mia leaned in closer, a conspiratorial tone cloaked in sincerity. "You know, I think there's power in what you shared with the group. I can't help but wonder, how did you find the courage to speak up?" Sarah opened her mouth, but the words faltered. Though she had found her voice in shared vulnerability, was she truly ready to embrace it full throttle? What ramifications would this newfound authenticity carry into the academic pressures looming ahead? As she left the cafe, her pulse quickened at the prospect of melding heart with advocacy. Yet lurking was a gnawing anxiety. This journey was just beginning, and the deeper she dove, the more formidable the currents of self-discovery would become. With an inhaled breath, she stepped into the bustling street, determination coursing through her veins. But the question loomed larger than ever. Would she harness this emerging courage to confront the vulnerabilities she had yet to unveil within herself? The morning sun spilled through Sarah's bedroom window, illuminating the path she was finally ready to take. Today was the day she would present her advocacy project to the class, a culmination of her evolving identity, vulnerability, and passion for nursing. The air thrummed with anticipation, yet self-doubt threatened to seep in, pulling at her resolve. She had charted this course, but now she stood on the brink of exposure. What if her fears crept back in? Determined to fight against the mounting anxiety, Sarah took a moment to breathe deeply. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection, reminding herself of the strength she had gleaned from her struggles. It wasn't just about presenting, it was an opportunity to advocate for others. Her mother's struggles, the stories of her customers, all cradled the essence of why she had chosen this path. Arriving at the auditorium, she felt the familiar swirl of nervous energy in her belly, but excitement flickered behind it. Sarah glanced around at her classmates, each one brimming with potential, some leaning into their presentations, others whispering strategies. She realized that she was no longer standing merely as a cashier from the grocery store. Today, she was a burgeoning advocate, a nursing student ready to make her mark. As her turn approached, her heart raced, but this time it was fueled by something different: confidence. Stepping to the front of the room, she looked at the faces before her and felt the weight of their shared journeys resonate in the air. Suddenly, it wasn't just about her fears. It was the collective experience of struggle and triumph that held power. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady as she introduced her project. Drawing upon her personal narrative, she shared the trials she had overcome while balancing her family's needs with her educational ambitions. The room softened, heads nodding in recognition of their own journeys as she spoke about the importance of compassionate care in nursing, how advocating for patients encompasses both medical responsibility and emotional empathy. With each word, Sarah felt her self-doubt begin to wane. She illustrated various real-life scenarios where compassion transformed patient experiences, weaving in stories from her interactions at the grocery store, where moments of empathy became pivotal. Students exchanged glances, leaning forward as if to absorb every ounce of her passion. When she concluded, a wave of applause washed over her. It wasn't just the act of sharing her project, it was the recognition that her voice mattered. She met her classmates' eyes, a palpable connection forming as she realized she was not alone in her journey. The rush of exhilaration surged through her veins, and for the first time, she felt wholly seen. After the presentations, a few classmates approached her with genuine enthusiasm. "Your project was so relatable," Mia mused, beaming brightly. "I loved how you combined personal experience with advocacy." In that moment, Sarah felt heavy burdens lifting. This was not just validation, it was a confirmation of her growth. Each connection bonded her to her peers, creating a network of support, resources she could draw from for both academic and personal challenges. What had once felt daunting now hummed with possibility. As she headed home that night, the echo of supportive words resonated within her. She had achieved a personal milestone, an internal shift from feeling invisible to becoming an integral figure in a community dedicated to growth and advocacy. Weeks passed, and Sarah embraced each class, her small steps of confidence transforming into strides. She learned to navigate the complexities of her responsibilities and schoolwork, gradually integrating her family life with her studies. Each decision was empowering. It meant she was capable of balancing both worlds. Then came the call that solidified this newfound momentum. It was the nursing program committee informally inviting her to share her journey at the upcoming orientation for new students. "We believe your story can inspire others," the voice on the line affirmed, and Sarah felt the rush of pride wash over her. Stepping into the spotlight wasn't just a speaking opportunity, it was a testament to her journey. She now held the weight of her narrative as both armor and strength. That day would mark a definitive turning point, a step up from survival to thriving. She wasn't just a student struggling with her identity. She had become a source of hope for others. In her final reflections, Sarah held pride. She had transformed her narrative from one of fear and uncertainty to one of courage and resolve. Each challenge had morphed into stepping stones, leading her closer to her dreams. The struggles that once felt like chains were now the very fabric of her strength, woven tightly together with resolve and passion. As she prepared her notes for the orientation, she took a moment to savor the journey brought forth in her heart. She gazed out the window, the horizon stretching far beyond her small-town grocery store. She was no longer looking back in fear. Her eyes were set on a future where she would not just achieve her dreams, but uplift others along the way. This was her transformation, her recognition. Sarah was not just ready to become a nurse. She was ready to conquer life, armed with the knowledge that vulnerability and authenticity were the keys to profound connection and growth. Now, if you've connected with Sarah's inspiring journey, you need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these empowering narratives. In the comments below, share your thoughts on Sarah's transformation and what it means to you. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.